Welcome to Housing Developments.
I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Here we are, live in New York City,
Yeah.
overlooking the Hudson River here, kind of Midtown. So
Yeah, New York. The city's so nice. They named it twice.
That's right. The city that never sleeps,
Yeah.
right? Well, before we get going, let's give a shout out to our favorite sponsor,
That's
LG Pro Builder.
Yep, let's build a good life together.
Yeah, thanks for being with us as always, LG.
100%.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So we're going to have a lot of news here, kind of all over the place, and then at the end we're going to have a little bonus segment.
Yeah,
so I hope
nice.
everybody kind of stays tuned for that. But I mean, first let's explain to people why we're here in New York, right? I mean, it's been a busy few days.
Yeah. So we're up here for HMI was released on Monday, up 3, which from reading was 43 last month, now 46. So we're getting closer to that break-even point of 50 points. So,
That's right.
Reason to be optimistic about the future, no doubt about it.
Yeah, in fact, the numbers played out, right? Like if you talk to our economics team and Rob, the timeline between the survey, half of it was actually pre-election, half of it was after, and we actually saw a little bit of a boost after the election, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this. The last 3 months seem to be very constricted in the housing market everywhere. I talked to builders. Everybody was kind of holding their breath till the election. Now we have certainty. Optimism about President Trump's term. The economy moving forward. So. So it's not surprising, of course. I think,
Right.
like I said, a collective sigh of relief that we know where we're headed. It didn't take too long. If you think about it, we really knew the results overnight.
I know, crazy.
So it's good to see that we're moving in positive, third month in a row, right? I think
That's
there's
right.
some positive movement.
Right.
So
and future sales like gangbusters up 7 points. So I mean, I think that's a good sign that the future market, our members are really excited about that.
Yeah, and I'll be curious, how that number holds up over the next several readings, just because we have seen mortgage rates spike. It's about 7%, right? But again, it's what Rob Dietz has said all along. It's going to be a bumpy ride through 2025 when it comes to mortgage rates. So again, not surprising. We're going to kind of see this whipsawing back and forth.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we saw that kind of uncertainty in the mortgage rates with today's numbers. We're recording this on Tuesday. The housing starts numbers and permitting data came out today.
Right.
Single family down almost 7%. But honestly, that's basically mortgage rate influence, right?
Yeah. We're still seeing the high rates kind of crept up since they sort of bottomed out in September, October.
That's right.
And so, kind of moved up from there. Obviously, the Fed has signaled, even though they cut a quarter point last week, the Fed signaled, hey, we're planning on cutting, but we'll see how things go. So the Fed even kind of tapped the brakes a little bit about their plan to probably cut another quarter point in December, and then they talked about a full point over the course of next year. So we'll see. I mean, but again, we're still in these kind of uncertain times, but but more importantly, our members' optimism really gives me hope that we're going to have a really good 2025.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why we're here in New York, we're doing a lot of media.
Right.
I mean, let's rattle them off, right? You were on Fox Business. You were on Yahoo Finance.
Right.
We just finished an hour-long interview with the New York Times.
That's right.
We've got CNBC tomorrow, and then the Wall Street Journal on Friday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's basically all about the future and what Trump and this administration, what it means for housing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. It's been fairly consistent. The questions have been fairly consistent.
Fairly consistent. And the Times reporters kind of led off with, why was housing the centerpiece of the election this year? And, we've never seen that before. And so we had a great conversation, but everybody's interested in writing the housing story right now, especially now that we know what the election is. What are President-elect Trump's plans? And as I've been saying, past his prologue, we saw what the first 4 years looked like, and I suspect the next 4 years will look similar. Lower regulatory burden on the economy, but on home building in particular. And he's inheriting an improving economy. I expect him to turbocharge that. We've got tax cuts, or at least a tax legislation on the horizon next year. But also some potential cautionary tales that we need to be looking out for. President Trump, a man of his word, and talking about mass deportations for illegal immigrants, and then obviously anything that could send a chill in the labor market is something we're going to look out for and talk to him about, and then also tariffs. He's talked about using tariffs either as a revenue raiser to complement maybe some tax cuts, or just a way to onshore and spur economic growth here in the country. So But tariffs we know
Yeah.
translate into higher costs oftentimes. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic, but also an opportunity for us to talk with the administration about some of our concerns.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think we have to be honest, right? Like overall positivity, but there are some speed bumps. Another thing that we talked about, a big one is immigration. That's something that they've all asked for as well in terms of how we view immigration. So, I mean, overall, we share the optimism, but at the same time, we have to be realistic that NAHB is going to be busy still for the next 4 years at least.
Yeah, and we didn't agree with everything in the first term, right?
Right.
I mean, we had many conversations about Canadian softwood lumber tariffs, and during the Trump term, when we want a housing for all policy, right? Which means as much housing options as we have out there. President Trump has talked about the suburbs and not doing away with single family zoning. So there will be plenty of opportunities to craft policy with the president and the new Congress, right? I mean,
Right.
as we talked last week when we talked post-election, we had not known if the Republicans were going to hold both chambers. They now will hold the House, albeit
Like
narrowly.
slim.
But nonetheless, that solves a lot of problems. Sure, you have to herd a lot of the cats to get to an end product, but between the Senate and now the House, I think that was. And I'll be honest, that was a miss, right? I thought I really thought for sure that the House would flip. I had been pretty consistent about that for a while, and is Rob Dietz, who obviously one of my dear friends and colleagues, who when he gets an economic call wrong, he is the first one to admit it. And I want to say Rob was wrong about the House on this one. I want to, but no, I mean, we were, it's. I think President Trump's coattails have been are long.
Yeah, surprisingly so, right? Like nobody would have imagined this. I mean, we talked about, in fact, him kind of suppressing a couple of different votes.
Right.
Apparently, not the case.
No. I think President Trump is going to be able to put his arms around a lot of members up there and say, "I need you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me."
Yeah.
So help step up.
All right, so we're starting to look at a little bit of the cabinet picture. It's starting to flow out. I mean, at least his nominees.
Right.
There's questions about some of them in terms of whether they'll pass the laugh test, but I mean, right now, how are you feeling about his nominees?
Yeah, I mean, I think the president obviously has the opportunity and
The right
to set up his cabinet. I think there were some nominees that kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, but we'll see if they can get through the process. I don't have a vote in the United States Senate, unfortunately, but we're still waiting on HUD. We're still waiting on Treasury, National Economic Council. I mean, those are the big ones that we interact with. They just announced Howard Lutnick to be the Commerce Chair. Obviously, with tariffs, he'll have an important role. We'll engage with the Commerce Department there. I'm looking forward to watching the debate on getting these confirmations going. I know the Senate will move quickly. The Senate will come back in on January 3rd.
Right.
They will not wait for the president to be inaugurated for them to start working through the process. So we'll see how it goes.
So you mentioned that HUD has not been mentioned yet. So what are some of the names that we're hearing?
So I've heard Ben Carson, who wanted to go to HHS, but that obviously went to RFK Jr. I also heard Ben Carson he does not want to be Surgeon General.
Right.
So I think there's maybe he may want to come back at HUD with some unfinished business.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, blast from the past. I've heard Rick Lazio, former congressman from New York, good friend of the industry, as a potential. Bill Pulte, grandson of Bill Pulte, who
Pulte
started
Homes.
Pulte Homes, has been floated out there as well. Our friend Brian Montgomery, I think he'd be a great candidate. He was the deputy secretary under Ben Carson, ran FHA as well. He's a H.W. Bush administration alum as well, a great housing background. So there's, whether they're all in the mix but there's rumors floating around. But I would suspect, maybe by the end of the week we'll hear something.
Right.
There's still quite a long way to go.
So, and I know that everyone's reporting that immigration is going to be, the first thing that Trump works on. What are some of the things that you want and what NHB needs the Trump administration to do sooner rather than later?
Well, I think, from my perspective, setting a signal that they're going to take housing regulations seriously. What are the things that they can do to pump the brakes on some of the Biden administration proposals. Obviously, that FHA requirement that any FHA borrower who's going to buy a new home, that home has to meet the 2021 IECC. I'd very much like to see the president signal early on that he plans to roll that regulation back.
Right.
Maybe not on day one, but certainly re-regulating under the Clean Water Act, and more importantly, the Supreme Court case. I think the Biden administration did not follow the Supreme Court's order. In that case, I think there's a real opportunity to bring some regulatory certainty to the Clean Water Act and how our members seek permits under that. So those are some of the things I think we want him to look at, and we'll be communicating with the transition team some of our day one items, and then moving forward.
Do you think? Are you hopeful that we have that same access with this administration that we did the first time around?
I do. I'm optimistic that we, he wants to build more housing. We are the ones who will build more housing, and we're looking forward to work with him on how we would do that and translating some of the things you talked about on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Translating them to policy and then moving forward and working through Congress. But we're going to have our plate full. I know coming out of the gate, there's a real feeling that they're going to try to get the extension of the Trump tax cuts, which expire at the end of 2025, get that done early, kind of first half of next year, clear the decks, move that forward because they have both chambers of Congress, and then move on to other items.
Right. Okay, so we talked about how busy week this is, but you've been busy and still moving around the country. I know you stopped over in a few different places. So let's talk about that. And what are you hearing?
Yeah, I was in North Carolina last week for our Area 4 Leadership Training Conference. I want to thank Tim Minton and the whole crew at NCHBA for hosting us. That was also the folks from North Carolina and Georgia as well. So great to see everybody. Great content. Just how to be better leaders, better staff.
Yeah.
It was a great day-long meeting last week. Yeah, and the builders are optimistic. I mean, there certainly, as I've been saying, our members. President Trump resonates with our members because he's a businessman, number one. Number two, he knows what it's like to sign a check. But number three, he's a home builder.
Yeah.
And I remember when he spoke to us in Miami in 2016, he said, everything I learned at the foot of a home builder. I think that really resonates with the vast majority of our members.
Sure.
So there's a lot of optimism out there. But again, how much can the president do? I mean, they really want to see that lower regulatory environment and higher economic activity. I think that, and let builders build. I mean, that's our message to President Trump is, help us clear out the things that are preventing us from building more homes.
Yep. And then finally, before we go into our secret bonus section, but let's talk about we still have a matching fund campaign going on with Disaster Relief Fund.
That's right.
Anybody can go to nhb.org/give, but give me your sales pitch right now. I'm putting you on the spot, but I think it's important that we kind of keep having that drumbeat going because it's so important.
Yeah, I think obviously our members are incredibly generous, when we talk about the affected communities in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, it's really important that our members step up nationwide to support the Home Building Industry Disaster Relief Fund.
Yeah.
Those are funds that are going to be used to help rebuild our members' companies and help build those communities. And it is critical as we see more and more of these disasters coming through and affecting our members and the communities that we build in. This is a chance for our industry to step up and work with our charitable arm to fund those coffers.
Yeah.
If every state pledged $10,000 to raise $10,000 to the fund, we would raise $500,000, and that would directly be matched by NAHB. We've committed matching the first $500,000 in this fund. So it's $1 million that we could raise in very short order to help those affected communities and those builders get back on their feet and build those communities.
Yeah, so once again, nhb.org/give. The matching campaign runs through IBS.
Right.
Please, if you can, go in and check it out and give whatever you can. It doesn't have to be $10,000, but every little bit helps for sure.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of waterfront. So so next week will be Thanksgiving. We'll be off for Thanksgiving.
That's right.
So I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving with your friends and family.
Absolutely.
Take time to be thankful for what we all have. But we'll rejoin it. It'll be December, the stretch run into the holidays. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
IBS is God, IBS is just about 2 months away, 3 months away.
Yeah,
Hard to believe, almost.
Yeah, we're at 14 weeks now,
Yeah.
and but who's counting?
Yeah, in the show, and you talked to Jeff Cassidy and the crew.
Gangbusters,
Yeah.
gangbusters. I mean, attendance still keeps going on. We still, I think we talked about this before. More than 500 new,
Wow.
exhibitors coming in. It's fantastic. I mean, we're basically bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I hope you have your hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Because they're
filling up.
They've been assigned and filling up. I mean, expect over 100,000 people in Las Vegas again. The K-Biz side of the show
Also growing.
Also growing. Yeah, it's going to be a great show.
All right. Well, with that, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. Good seeing you.
One more time, LG Pro Builder.
Yeah, let's build a good life together. Again, thanks for everything that you do and make everything we do possible. So
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm Paul Lopez.
And I'm Jim Tobin. See ya.
Bye. All right. Well, thanks for everyone for sticking around for our new exciting segment. To share this important news, I've got Denise Miller, our Vice President of Marketing and Brand. Denise, welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. So with 15 weeks left before...
14, actually 14.
Wow. Okay. Well, now with 14 weeks left before the show, we decided to start a new segment to kind of give people an idea of what's happening at the show as we move into the new year, right?
Absolutely.
So first of all, what's the name of the new podcast?
So the new podcast is Builder Show Insider.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So basically what we're talking about here is every time that we do a podcast, we'll have an extra segment. We'll attach kind of like a teaser, right, to the Housing Developments podcast. And then what? If people want to learn more about what you guys are doing, where do they go for the full segment?
So we will be doing teasers with Housing Development, and then the full segment will be on buildershow.com. If you go to the IBS TV page, or you can go to our YouTube channel, which is also IBS TV.
Very nice. Okay, so what are we expecting here when we see this new segment? What is it now? Builder Show Insider?
Builder Show Insider.
Will I be an insider?
You might be an insider. You will be an insider.
All
With
right,
the
all
number
right.
of years you've been at the show,
No.
you
Yes.
are an insider. So it's a work in progress, but our goal is for those folks who have never attended the show to give them some tips on how to make this a really productive experience for them. And for people who've attended the show many years, to help them understand what's new and exciting at the show. Also, what's new and exciting in Vegas. We're fortunate enough to hold our event in one of the most exciting cities in the entire world. So we want to kind of showcase, where do you get the best steak? Where could you find a perfect Manhattan? Those kind of things.
All right. So walk us through some of like sample segments in the future, right? Like, because I know one of the things that I get, even though I haven't been directly with the show, is, wow, this is amazing. How do you guys do this? So you'll be answering this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have worked for the show for many years, and within our little circle, we call each other trade show hacks, right? Because we've done it for so long. But I think it is really interesting to see how an event of this size comes together.
Right.
So our hope is that we will talk to some of the people that work behind the scenes and help people understand, how do you pick the education sessions, and then talk about the special events that are put on. What are kind of the mechanics behind those special events? And then also to talk a little bit about the business side of it. We do a very extensive survey after the show where we go out and ask people what they liked, what they didn't like. And based on those survey results, we are tweaking the show every single year.
Right.
So maybe it's inside baseball, and maybe people won't want to know the details, but I think, as you mentioned and I've heard, people are always asking, how does this all come together?
Well, and this is also multi-dimensional, right? We're not just talking about the behind the scenes. I mean, you'll be talking about some of the things that are happening at the show, the things that are happening while we're at the show. Different kind of venues that people may not know about, stuff like that, right? So that's the insider part, right, as well.
Right, absolutely. And I think as a person who reads a lot of the surveys after the show, I am really disappointed when I hear people that don't realize some of the things that happened at the show. So
Right.
we'll have somebody that would say, it would be great if you had networking opportunities. And we know there are countless networking opportunities.
Right.
So part of it is just to make sure that before people get on site in Las Vegas, they have a really solid understanding of what is available to them at the show. And then any planning they need to do ahead of time, or any tools they need to download, like the app, and how they could best use the app. And I think our goal in the end is really that people who go to the show have a much richer experience based on the information we've given them.
Right, and based on everything you're saying, it doesn't matter that information. You could be a first timer or you've been there for 10 years. A lot of people just don't understand all the things that's available to them, because they kind of, like you said earlier, right? They find like their little niche, and they say, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm used to. Either it's just the floor or just education and a little bit of floor mixed in. But I think we're going to give them a very broad view of what is available to people, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely our goal. And it's kind of like when you go on a personal vacation, right? You get home, you're talking to somebody, and they say, oh, you definitely went to see X, right?
Right.
And then you think, I didn't even know X existed.
Right.
And it is, for people are busy, right? A lot of people get on the plane, and that is when they download the app. The most app downloads are within 12 hours of them arriving on site.
Yeah.
So they just don't have the time. And so, we don't expect these to be really long segments. We want to have a lot of fun with the segments, but we also want people to feel like, oh, I didn't know that existed. Maybe I want to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited.
I am too.
So expect this roughly every week. We'll take a couple of vacations during the holidays, but for the most part, if housing development happens, then you and I are talking about Builder Show right afterwards, right?
That is absolutely the goal.
All right. Well, Denise Miller, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right. Bye.
Bye.